So like definitely my today I'm taking up that I like the use of strength that by the time like the report will be catching up to that Steve and like the root like I'm saying by then like I'm depend okay for like Steve could not totally take like the lead head can find us in like the correction on this way like that again it's like the more like that head scientist there like and the different Steve most likely take apostate by the time that the supposed to be making it to that kind of science it's like a scenario that I'm looking. But like I'm at that point that I'm looking at seeing like seeing so that like and at that point of like Robin will be strongly feeling that it's like probably that's the main of going to like work out again like that and that like the purpose on their page. So definitely would be along the lines like Russian would be strongly feeling so like Russian would be strongly feeling that like they will be soon getting captured and to think of that kind of kind of be along the lines like Russian would be strongly feeling at that time. So like I'm just before like before to be making it to like the room of like the scientists were like speak from the brain and out by them would have taken like the head scientist like hostage like but by then like definitely like Robin that probably that will also be an error in that room of like the time when like the on the feeling is definitely automatic preemption. So like definitely I'm still implementing by the time that is supposed to be the two government like person supposed to be making it to that time of like the scientists like and that Robin succeeded in like ensuring that like Erica gets away through that like the snap there and like that totally things would be according to like Robin's like calculative plan but like Robin would be totally foreseeing like definitely the serious possibility of like them definitely getting captured and took into like 10% time situation by like so like at that point for like her dad to be able to like save up so that access through the air to be able to like actually make it to like the room that they will be put them in and they gave for like her dad to be able to like save them like and bring that Robin planning and thinking ahead to that much extent and basically Robin putting all that faith and confidence on that her dad to like succeed at that and it's with that way like with like Robin help like her can managing to like get through that like and like see that's going to help to like Robin getting captured by the Russian and maybe getting put into like this like interesting kind of like a situation in this like interrogation room where like I'm sort of something like owns as well to be orderly present in like an kind of situations that may not be intentions and sitting on plan like at level during that so far like the post might have interrogated point a lot by now. So also like the opportunity that I'm looking at. So like it might be sort of afraid to like because that because then have a deadline and definitely I'm looking right now there will be most likely the report will be most likely having like most likely less than 2 weeks for like the content might do that the different videos with minimum and this is like the headline maybe the afraid to like to be able to like open up like to like the backend to like make that for the different like transportation from like all the way from like Russia from like the energy laboratory in like Russia to like the energy laboratory in like the north in like Hawkins might be like the profession of like the students in like the field of science and especially when friends so like so during this like experiment before like the deadline like from like the science by now could be might be of explain the question like and putting like the something like the extent like photos like and putting that then I don't the support might have probably maybe captured like Owens and Disney might have probably interrogated Owens uh, to like to get like in zone of like close as to like how or close of like and possible information as to like close connecting to that Bruno's like experiment on like it's a theory into this level. Yeah, like I'm the different like and definitely those close like like the head sign the head correction signs might be getting that like those will be in like the different will be absolutely valuable in like the current experiment to open up the gate through like the complexity and becoming a successful layer of the lines like head kind of everything home along with like the remainder of support to you follow the all of them will be totally assuming the electrical might be assuming that basically work for not as well as like 11 to electrical the platinum or definitely manufacturing mainly the rate of like them fundamental most likely might have totally by now might have captured owns and might have been interrogating owns for like a while by now. For a great number of days by now, might be the case depending on the so that Owens still might have kept like that crucial information of like 11 uh, uh, being alive in like the person like the secret from like the scientist and might be that's relevant to those but like I'm like once like that Russian things like what like capturing but I don't know for like by the time the person would be storming into like that room of like the person saying like at that point I'm just thinking scenario to be like Steve taking like direction head find it like hostage and basically threatening like the remaining character was like would be storming into that room to like to stop that machine. And basically Steve himself like totally accidentally and like a man of like totally lag asking them if they are like crazy, don't they know the consequence of like the opening like the gate to like the convert and the line confidence keep to shouting out to them and threatening like the written both to like totally to talk like that complex machine. Right, and it's like this after that. Yet like I'm doing like the report like only of running Steve and like putting Steve to like an kind of investigation. Yet like and that point like the report was like the head for it inside that would be after that then we have to be extremely curious as to like how exactly Steve like around about Steve knows about like the parent world and about like empathy and all of that. So Liam is like an interrogation of that mind like while Steve and other people into like that interrogation goes around like sounds like and this is like at that point like the interaction ends like totally with like the okay in order to like the person was to like interrogate like Steve like the scenario that I'm saying. And that when I was trying for like most likely Steve like not even the number and like will be revealing the full information about like event but like I'm looking like Steve most likely getting maybe getting intimidated and like totally eventually like by the interrogation of the person member and like totally eventually revealing like the truth about like that crucial information about like even still uh even being alive into like the scenario that I'm looking at so that one self something like that head sign is like being absolutely shocked about is like the scenario that I'm looking at and like I'm looking at that one said like the head kind of like straight away falling like most likely is that person for member who's like that like person like chasing after like Hopper and Joe's like I'm saying maybe like at that point it was like giving a call like that head person kind of like and telling giving him that person for member like the all the important point that like alive and person from where in like talking and basically giving the order to him to like only cancer to find and cancer and bring 11 to like the sugar rushing and do the thing is like the not air state which is like enough that I'm looking for. And so I'm looking for this like either for like that happens from Russian force member like so I think it's like chase up like pop up and goes and basically said like regarding to like come through like the entire of like surround of that up footstep and find 11 so on and so forth to find 11 and so on and so forth. Either that or like the possibility that I'm for like by during that interrogation and maybe still getting so absolutely intimidated to like the point of that basically then not really revealing the personal information that like 11 is like alive but also the information that like 11 at custom is like the like pop is like really look like pop it's also like opportunity that I'm looking on. And so like that's the case then I'm different like maybe like the person post member at that point like deciding to like basically to like definitely ensure that like even more than before to like ensure that to make it to like capturing pop up so that like the things like pop up like basically from his point of view would be totally things that like as like that actually being able to like find and capture relevance would be along the lines like the stock question course member would be at that point in it. It's like an artist that I'm supposed to so like that way like I'm something like it's totally regarding to like say like kids straight away like without making any not even a single second like straight away like not like stealing a car so that point as like we would be like attempting to like keep up that chase of like for like at that point this is like the point where like I'm totally coming by then like it will be most likely night time and like I'm looking at that point is when I'm looking like it's a path of like this car like all of a sudden like the middle of the road like flowing up and basically that way like that would also happen right in front of that like the mini mind where and just like I've mentioned like the scenario that I'm that way like I'm doing like a similar scenario as to like how really got like taking control by like the mini mind where like I'm doing like a similar kind of like a scenario like I'm looking like that Russian force member as well checking like the ball and basically like ending up getting taken control by like the mini mind there's like been just an outside and look at all the things and the brand. But like the as well that I'm looking at the for like at that point that One by the current humans like the head production kind of would be like shortly finding out about like separation information about like claims still uh, alive, like I'm looking at that, then maybe can also not only giving like the order scale at that was number alone to find 11 as one of those, but like I'm looking like while that okay, so now the role is chasing after like of like I'm putting maybe like that head person saying like not at all wasting any time at all and then probably straight away giving like the orders to lecturers to that great number of that person I mean also that means like the person in like that speaker and of the person and of the lab of beginning like the model to like they go undercover and basically to form through like the entirety of like the town of Hawkins and to like ensure to like find and bring element to like to like the end of the lab as soon as possible like you could give the order to them as well and that way like for the state number of like uh person of the first one that basically put undercover and basically like and like basically that way like then that as which can like counting through like the sound tokens in that town of Hawkins network 11 aspect. Also like an impossible scenario that I'm looking for this thing in like the field for staying in open up new brain. Currently my theory and the thing that I'm seeing on this but new that like the color difference of like the new monster when compared to like the previous phase of monsters of like the dark like faceless monster as well as like the humanoid faceless monster as well as like even like the shadow monster might be definitely due to lack this lack in new monster might be totally not at all an actual monster that actually might possibly even exist in like the bad world, especially my frame basically that it might be a monster like the realistic creativity of like the mini mind player, like the mini mind player who is like control over like Tom and like the other boss might have like totally in a realistic creative manner might have created this definitely might have framed it. So that this monster might this new monster might not at all have like an organic existence at all in like the background. This definitely might have framed it. So definitely. And also something that might be temperature that like this like monster might be only able to like stay in it like through like the control of the minimum player this like might be the case in that how this monster might be able to like remain in its like monster form and like it might there might be totally limitation as to like how long like the minimum player through like control might be able to like keep this monster in this like monster form before this like eventually like the minimum player would be having will be reaching that time limit where like once like on reaching that time limit like this new monster might be returning back to like to its like original location within like both Tom as well as like the other boss. And that way at that point like Tom as well as like the other boss would be getting back their human form would be like the actuality of that's how like this power through like the control more than through the control of the minimum player like might be actually working steadily membrane but like I'm putting definitely for like I'm fully remember for like Tom as well as like for like definitely them not being able to like save neither Tom nor like other bosses like the scenario that I'm in terms of like really this scenario that I'm sitting out of definitely for like this like most of this like this main amount of this like current target is having to be like Nancy and the like straight away right now the point would be like it's like pushing towards like Nancy to like Nancy but like at that point I'm definitely putting like Jonathan doing absolute guts and attacking like the monster and trying to like stop it but like I'm looking at that point like the monster attacking Jonathan back like the scenario that I'm saying that way I'm different of this either like 11 making it exactly in time as like the monster would be about to like take out like Jonathan is like the scenario that I'm looking. So like that's like one scenario that I'm trying or like the other possibility that I'm trying for like while Jonathan will be trying to like save Nancy and attacking like the monster like at that point like the monster like attacking Jonathan and that is badly injuring like Jonathan and that way Jonathan is getting probably getting sidelined and as like the and then like the monster will be like rushing towards like Nancy will be trying to like run and get away from like the monster and like the monster at that point would be like uh still making it towards like Nancy and like will be affecting Nancy and that will be as like after like affecting like Nancy and that will be as like someone will be trying to like get away and escape from like the top of the building like at that point I'm also trying that and that will last second like I'm doing like 11 totally making it and basically like using like 11 like 10 minutes for like 11 like complete probably with that app with always like element like compared to that when like element has used elements like technical power in like open sport like the basket games like the humanoid model which had resulted in like 11 getting dragged into like the parallel world. Like that scenario definitely I'm considering right now to that definitely not of habit. It's like the scenario that I'm considering because like by now that 11 would have it will just be it might be a scenario where like it might not only be like 11 like superpowers that might have grown up stronger along with like 11 as well growing up like but it might be also like 11's like control over like 11 telekinetic superpowers and that's all of like 11 superpowers that will might have greatly increase and like 11 like 4 11 like, might be having like way superior controls for like 11 powers that like 11 like precisely using like telekinesis powers to like precisely take out that new monster while without causing any harm to like Nancy, then as like without getting without having like Eleven get cracked into like the parent world as well. So it's like with that as a position like Eleven like taking on this new monster and like saving Nancy feels like the scenario that I'm able to overcome and to the end of the city. So the civil economic was very interesting that like by now that the mini mind player might be absolutely well aware that like Nancy could like mics of like good stuff and basically that like might was like the most purchased person in like relevant like and so since like when might definitely be that the main priority of like the mini mind player and like the main target of like, the mini mind player to take control of 11 might be that the mini mind player like automate through that and that way by taking control of like 11 to that create like to be for like the mini mind player to be like create like as many games as to like the background of it like might be definitely like the minimize players like ultimate work. So minimum player lesson that I'm sitting on to. So like definitely like the person like the minimize player like specifically targeting Nancy might be to that only that way by taking control of Nancy to that only like that way to the like Nancy under control to that way to you might away from that 11 and that way to like take control of like might be like the flat of like the minimize the element because like Mike and Eleven like was the always like together that usually so to like separate Mike from Eleven by taking control of Nancy and like luring Mike away from that 11 by through Nancy. It's like Mike and Nancy that I think that even to the person living like the same home. So like this might be like the plan of like the minimum player and it might be the reason for like the minimum player at person targeting Nancy. Definitely brings it because like that we usually go take control of like Mike like the minimum player might do the same who might be totally remember the would be relevantly other right now that like Mike is like the most precious person for like 11 definitely so like the many minus player like might be totally planning on like basically like once like take after that taking control of like might to like launch its like ultimate attack against like 11 only at that point after taking control of might to like totally then use might to like totally your 11 to like that go on and they have to have like that ultimate battle against like 11 where like by having like all the remaining human army get turned into like monsters and basically like by keeping my kiddo as like sim like human form, but to learn like control to the living club that way that by putting my forward like basically to create that extreme disturbing and like difficult kind of like situation for like elements to even battle for even fight back and that way that while when you deem such a difficult kind of like and sufficient kind of like situation at that point to like only uh turn all the human army into like control of the minimize to most of them make them attack 11 and that way to like totally that way to like for and defeat 11 and that way or like the minimize to like take control of it might see like the minimize like eventual flat might be the case of minimum prevention. So like the minimum prevention right now that is like the minimize like the taking control of the might have gone through like police like memories and in those memories might have already seen like Maxine might be the case of Minute. So like in like the past when that Maxine and Eleven had showed up to like the home of like the like really as that was like I think young like Tom as well as like others like not quite well that is back then like when Billy had and at that point like the minimize like controls in Billy like at that point like when Billy had twins uh 11 Maxine along with like 11 at that point so something like definitely like the maybe it might be at that point that like the mini mind player might have totally have recognized Maxine has like not only like the sister of Billy, but also has like the other friend of like 11 as well. Might be the case of the minimum transition. So like that realization might have happened to like the minimum maybe to that point might be the case of minimum transition. So definitely so that once like Billy might recently reported this like fight against like 11 to like the minimum player like and at that point the minimum player might have maybe straight away assume that basically due to Black Philip being like the product of Black Maxine is like in the front of Black 11. Like 11 might have held back on Black 11's strength might be along the lines like the mini mind player might have while fighting off against Black Philip might be along the lines like the mini mind player might have strongly but and even with Black Philip even saying that they would lead that yeah, was about to get taken out by let's say on sprint. So definitely bring at that point like the mini mind player might have completely overestimated that elements that strength and might have uh, and like maybe at that point that like the mini mind player might have decided to and came up with like this strategy to like abduct Nancy and take control of Nancy and eventually throw Nancy to take control of Mike and that way to like use Mike against like 11 to like that way. I don't like the remaining 2.5 moves that they used to shortly bring down 11. So like plans might have been formed within like the minimum player. Maybe only at that point, the minimum range. So definitely, yeah, like with like in that person like with like 11 like fight against like the new monster, like the fact that like relevant to the that take out like the new monster like the fact that the new monster had survived almost like multiple powerful attacks of like 11 like bring that might have given that absolute extreme boost of like overconfidence for like the minimum player because like at that point like once like the new monster had like merged with like the mini Minecraft, like at that point, just like the mini Minecraft might have like Billy as well as like head up saying that like it's time that might be due to like the mini Minecraft at that point, like or conflict coming to like the conclusion that basically since like even since, like while 11 had like fought up against like the new monster 11 might have unlike in like Phillies doesn't fight against like Philly in the case of like 11 while fighting up against like the new monster might have given it 11's like absolute force strength and powers into 11's like attack while fighting against like the new monster and still like the fact that like the new monster was able to like survive all those attacks powerful attacks of 11 might have given that extreme more confidence for like the minimize where that like the minimize uh at present might have at that point might have only given up on like the minimize where that plan like take control of Nancy and so Nancy to also take control of might be the case with the minimum friends like the minimum player right now in the person might do off conflict thing that basically that like it doesn't need to do for that and it's already strong enough to like basically the fact that like only just with like a single new monster with like song as well as like other parts like with just like the single new monster that was like created like basically like invented and like eliminate like that single new monster like basically so certainly with like at present with like the mini Minecraft like having so much of like multiple things happening uh, control like at least the minimum player right now could be very actually or that like it would definitely that it's time to like finally make that ultimate final move against like 11 and to like draw 11 to like the bottom and for like that ultimate showdown battle in which like it, the minimum player would definitely be able to like or only be and take control of 11 with the element to except for content like the minimum player maybe has definitely potential demon and definitely also my different issues that like exactly like 10, 11 states like definitely has like 11 heroes or like definitely 11 like the power contained within like the 11 as well might be getting more stronger and sharp and 11 like control or like 11 powers as well would be like seriously getting better and good. So like I'm different that there might be like a similar case for like the mind player as well like the giant mind player as well as the mini mind player like the more it grows like the more like powers as well might grow along with it might be the case even for like a minimum class as well might be for the case minimum principle might be also the reason for like 11 4 had basically actually succeeded in like basically stopping up like the giant mind class from keeping like the huge gate in it like for another the open through like 11 like 11 like taken spot and like 11 had back then like using 11 like power alone at profit even from like the strength of like the giant mind flare like that building them 11 at like thousand like probably like and not being able to like probably take out like this like new monster which was created for like Tom as well as like other forms like might be also due to this reason so also like the that are putting contact data will like the minimum player or as well as like it creates more like like it's also like the power contained within it as well like going along with it might be like creates the minimum frame. So definitely. And I get like my consideration for like this like or concept which might be totally existing between like the minimum player and it might be the sort of reason for like really as well as for the right now saying it's time like I'm definitely the or concepts on the spring like eventually probably backfire to a great extent is like showing person out of parents. Because like we are looking that fine sort of fight against like the minimum player like 11 definitely on the spring like who is traveling to the extreme to bring down and to feel like the minimum player. So that we are can get like in that extreme kind of like situation like definitely that resulting in like an awakening most likely happening within like 11 like into like 11 powers like I'm looking like the next huge stage of like a power upgrade of like 11 like a current powers like probably something that's happening most likely during that extreme popularized situation in that final showdown that is against like the main Empire and like army. Once it will be happening of like the industrial arc that was like, and that newly upgraded powers and like will be like sitting in that like powers like skyrocketing. It's like those scenarios that I'm explaining. Which like I'm looking at that point, like even definitely like getting strong to like the point of like being able to like take out even these new monsters. Then like there will be a great number of like these kind of like new monsters under like the control as like an army under like the control of like like that comes like into scenario that and that like still even with like that still power trade with like so big thing that we have having gaining at that point like I'm like while even taking out a great number of those new monsters still to the trend would be getting exhausted and will be struggling against like the minimized in like like final fight against like the actual like minimized like in scenario and I'm still thinking to my brain in a pocket about like even Gally as well at present possibly being suitably present in that program of like the minimum club like this so the thing would be like it's like the scenarios like that and it just that I'm bring months like eventually 11 along with like Mike and the boost would be making it to like finding like the base of like the minimum mind player and that way would be making it to like like at that point like the biggest surprise that will be awaiting that might be Cali under like the control of like the minimum club might be also the case of like a remote kind of like a possibility where I'm basically cutting and moving around it. So like basically like by now already on the screen like multiple gates might have been myself might be in this like instruction form of like uh in like multiple areas across like the town of Auckland that might be like that yeah like these gates might have like the minimum player might have only extend according to like the orders of like the giant mind player which like the mini mind player and like the giant mind player might be only communicating between like the real world and that one through like by sending their frequencies if the case which will be which might be in audible to like the human ears might be like curious like about today that I'm doing. So that way like I'm different play and like all this like for play was that basically even through the store like basically like the minimal player was like attempting to like transport like all of those for like was like the intent behind that as well might be to definitely to might be due to like gates already strictly being present like the first initial gates like the minimal player might have created after a flag hidden role of like can might have been or like the giant might have like accompanied my earlier production like might have probably Danny might have actually while trying to like get away from it off might have ended up like using the chemical powers and basically might have ended up actually like creating like a type of like as well. Either with such a scenario or like it might have been during like for getting Gally as well as like front rather than in their base that they might have had like a twelve connected to like 11 and Gally might have gotten embraced and those later and like Gally might have like short out like 10 chemicals powers in like one area of that go around base and like that might also sudden like Gally after the meet opening up the speed to like the backbone and that way like Gally who might have absolutely no idea at all, even if that's the person that for that what that might be, and like that way carry like carry and like the robot can might have explore that gate and might have that way actually might have ended up in like the panel and that way might have while this form like the panel might have ended up getting formed by one of like the humanoid monsters who might be under like the control of like the giant shadow monster might be the case that the range. So like that way like the giant shadow monster might have maybe even taken out like the entire take of like the rubber band of like Cali and might have affected like Cali and like that way and the maybe like the through the control of like uh, through the giant shadow monster like mind like taking control of Cali like maybe like the first gate might have been uh, might have been created in that exact form of like I feel like if like the other people can like about that and so like the vines might be growing and like from the thing that go around like the gate around with like the vines as well as like this underground uh, underground honeycomb like some level might be in like the process in like the beginning stages of like the process of like creation might be also the case so like definitely the like human of like the minimize player like and like doing like and like and like the minimize player so it's like control over them might be only using them to like dig up and create like the honeycomb within beneath that this might be beginning from that program might be like the case with the name and friend. So like the might be also electing states of its like spreading to like this steer up that route like all this like the place might be also making transformed by this like human army intellectual and all the minimum lab as well might be the case and like all this like clearing supply and data like as well getting stolen from like the wrong topic might be like its purpose might be to like to clean up like the close like of like all the human here like the mini Minecraft and like the mini Minecraft so far like until like the recent point have been like prioritized instead and that way had like even after taking control of the had like the that by the mini Minecraft control the had sent the to like back to like the like job during that daytime and everything. So definitely, that might be the reason for like names like the train supplies as well as like presence of things from like the bank pockets. Uh, might be also the way like the possibility that I'm the thing and everything. Especially as to my question and assume that like at present like as for like the deadline connected to like the machine text when using like the complex machine to like open the gate and everything that uh only that at most like in the like it will be only 3 or like less than 3 days that might be remaining at present for like the deadline to be all of the limit reasons might be the definite reason as well for like basically that content of person post member like basically even like at present like basically integrating and producing clients uh, to like basically find pop-up in a single day like in being so specific about it and like you just like a single day alone for like client to find also will be definitely due to that the fact that basically for like them having like the person with like an entire secret like energy laboratory we need like the morning Hawkins and like the center time like them or like basically because like it might be such a situation where like it might be like the page of like each and every single one of them comes to like the equipment that might be on the line connecting to this that line. So like the last thing they might be wanting would be to like basically as like and the name thing like this like the production scientists might be at present might be thinking seriously close to like opening up that ticket, the feeling in their experiment of like opening up the ticket might be like that to a different situation and about which like a maybe like like the reporters might be aware of the limit and so definitely even like the staff director board member might be then aware of that, like the possibility of like the like possibly being ending up becoming successful before like the deadline. This kind of like seriously a possibility to be along the lines of the staff director board member as well would be totally seeing like a situation as well. Like the last one day would be bonding in such a critical situation with like possibly just upon the member friends in just like 3 or less than 3 days, most likely remaining alone for like their deadline which would be for like through offer to like basically for like all their confidential secrets to get leaked and basically that way for like the for like their experiments like that's like so close to that becoming something before like uh, the deadline that will get like for that experiment to like just stop all day to like hop up alone. Might be like the last thing the what people would be wanting, and like this might be the reason for like him being so specific as for like giving just a single day for like client to like catch up. Or might be like that reason especially when but sort of something like the impression that is putting on this especially for like Hopper as well as Joe like one of stage like might definitely not really be able to like fully and thoroughly understand, but also might be also able to like when speak English, might be like the accuracy of like the social situation, accuracy of the case, and like the social information that he might be sort of like fake acting might be like disguising and like shooting hidden that social information from that book. So it might be like that with the situations definitely necessary. Like so, then sitting in the necessary mention that like hop up as well as like those like eventually getting careless and like them usually talking among each other like about like 11 while in like the presence of like the like ocean water without like paying much attention to just like preferences like personality that I'm looking for, and definitely can would be straight away like catching that crucial information and basically would be continuing to like fake acting after like the and it's like the scenario that I'm looking, and like I'm looking maybe for like scenario to be like in like the middle of the night while all of them like while Morabom and Hopper and those would be all sleeping at like Morabom and like didn't bathe like at that point I'm looking like the middle of the night like to probably like either like the inverter like stealthily somehow managing to like escape um of that base of like Morabom or like I'm looking like him straight away like managing to like escape and like straight away like even spawning maybe even from like Morabom's base itself like since stealthy like spawning that Russian scientists like in like that secret run of the lab of like they need like them all and they can probably contact him or like one of his like assistants and they are needing this like crucial information as for like relevant being alive and able to then basically being present lesson learned like nothing. So along the lines of that and that sources information and this is almost like eventually only through like okay Russian worker itself like and like the what band in that secret kind of the laboratory in like the north that in how things like eventually finding out what is like giving this scenario like I'm sitting on the friend. So like definitely not very interesting right now. It's definitely for like the scenario to be like once like the space like more not like it's like and at that point it's like something like pop up the shop pop like basically at that point it's work different like environment uh, as well as like those to be that straight away like shouting out and blaming of in an embracement or like at that point it's like pop up straight away like threatening government to like hand over like government's car. And with the at that point I'm referring like the situation like Murray Bowman and so like Murray Bowman might be most likely having like definitely an extremely sophisticated and custom made car which like he might have built on his own which might be extremely complicated as for like to even drive might be like the case it can be so extremely sophisticated and created by Bowman himself and which like Bowman will be that car of that woman and which I'm forgetting to exist and like it should be something that woman will be so extremely proud of like as like as a creation and will be seen as absolutely perfect and would be so proud of like my premise. So like I'm putting that woman right away like telling her that like he's insisting on like him driving his like car and like chasing after and capturing like the smart mouth. But like I'm totally putting like a hopper won't be at all in like the mood that Hopper would be totally in like that whole series like urgency of like panic kind of like a situation to like capture like Smirnoff as soon as possible that like from like Hopper totally starting its generic format and basically like stealing away, snatching away like the tree crafty from like Roman and then which like Hopper straight away getting on to like the 5 feet and then from that Hopper squad look like even driving that car of like woman and woman will be getting extremely embraced at like Hopper and they're literally telling Hopper to like go aside that like he will drive it, but like I'm doing Hopper at all not all willing to like listen at all to like woman and I'm looking like that way Hopper struggling to like driving of like the car of that woman and like Hopper driving that car in an extremely rash manner like and that woman that in that time would be like feeling extremely embraced at like Hopper for that. for like basic it's like pressure car like the scenario that I'm looking for like I'm putting that so get car of which like only my access for like normal like I'm looking in that car like I'm putting that car will be all sorts of like unique kind of like defense mechanisms as well as like attack modes existing for that car like and like for there could be a great number of buttons for that car like so which like that car might be able to like shoot out all sorts of like weapons and everything is like my particular ambition. So that definitely I'm looking for that proper struggling, seriously struggling to explain to like even understand how all that works and I'm like domain really trying to make proper understand and I'm looking like proper probably by the time that and that way like I'm using that to get like domain and like proper and so finally succeeding in like running the way like still finally taking it to and finally stop succeeding in like stopping uh, stopping like Smurf like the scenario that stopping and capturing and taking Smurf back to like uh, back to that domain space like scenario that yeah like I'm when that capture incident everything like certainly that would be resulting in like basically client probably finding out about it and like basically client getting calls and basically client probably finding out about like about like pop-up have been seen in that location in like it's like the scenario that I'm looking for. So definitely I'm looking for still by the time that pop-up will be like captured like and by then like I'm looking for would have messed up and a lot of that damage to like that precious of like environment by then it's like about this like environment would be at that point will be only few minutes while they visiting that and bring sperm of back to the base of that moment. It's like the scenario that I'm able to right now. Okay, so like the main difference right now like it may be far so obvious for like the written process but like still during like interrogations like it also like solely because of like the mainly because of like that and like Robin might be the case with the new friend because like definitely Robin might be totally in another room facing interrogation herself as well and basically like as to like the question as to like how they got to like the question secret energy level minutes like the more like basically then both might be simultaneously right now getting like interrogated and not just the might be the actual different situation so like there will be that absolute extreme mismatch in the life that like Steve and Robin would be saying as to like how they want to like the elevator and got to like the eruption. Like the more in the virtual of saying it might be like that the situation right now, just legal experience. So the legal experience that sitting on those definitely that like person like he had like started working at like that experience of like the more and met Robin like and then itself like and like Robin might have secretly had like might be like the case of Lehman's rendition and like eventually as they spend more time together like at their job like and different like that might eventually like turned into like serious feelings of affection within like Robin towards next week about which that Robin might have been deep down extremely insecure due to that Steve being from a wealthy family like like Robin might have Robin states like Robin might actually be from like a wealthy family and that might have been something that like from Robin's perspective Robin might have seen might as like something that might have for Robin's point of view might have created insecurity for like Robin might be the case and that as well might have been one main reason for like Robin maybe like not from Robin's perspective not like being able to like express to like Steve how much he loves Steve might be like that in different situations that limit anything so that so like every time she was Steve would be Steve attempted to like get a date with like the with like to the customers like at that point at like the experience. So like at that point I'm like Robin secretly might have been wishing that basically all the third that would like might have been hoping that like all those third would like even like this time this girl would like still like Robin might have been secretly deep down might have been feeling only happy and really might have been like exactly different situations that we know the parameters. So like we are looking for like into like current situation with like correct importance and like the interrogation situation and everything like I'm perfectly right now Steve like will be protecting that all those like crucial information and like fighting for justice so bravely and even by taking all that injuries and everything like still not revealing all that like any information like all that might out definitely like definitely that bravery and skill, like that bravery and that boldness of Steve might have probably thoroughly and fiercely extremely impressed that Robin even more might be like the activity to definitely went definitely for like in like regard as well as like substance like attempt to like make it to like deliver like I'm looking like them totally eventually messing up and like by sheer points of like ending up instead of like make it to that location of the deliver like then instead like making it to that location of ending up in like the location above that in like the ceiling area of like the interrogation room like Steve and where like in person Steve and Robin will be. It's like the scenario it's like the scenario that I'm saying. And at that point I'm looking like definitely for like the initial phase of the interrogation like uh that person post might have taken a break and like they will be like leaving that interrogation room and at that point I'm looking like Parika as well as like Preston Black will be entering down to that room and like freeing them somehow managing like free Robin. But like I'm going to Steve even at that point will be in that kind of unconscious kind of state from that for that injury. Like the scenario that I'm looking like. And definitely at that point, that will be like seems to like that would be like seriously enraging Robin and like Robin at that point would be lack of the that will be having that for serious face, extreme serious face, like an intense face happening for like Robin, where like Robin at that point would be like fixing in her mind that definitely to destroy that complexity at all cost to not leave that like location to not altogether not leave that location without destroying insurance like destroy that like on the things that that way like and that Robin along with like Dustin and Erica entering back into like that air like in that feeling area which might considering might be like bigger than the other air but in like the small location of like it's like the scenario that I'm concerned. So like the like yeah, but in like the ceiling of like the secret direction energy laboratory, it is like the mall might be that cat like might be bigger and like so like Robin being able like fitting and being able to like travel through like the air but it's like the scenario that I'm in. So like that way like I'm in like they only moving through like the air but like I'm like them only seeing maybe another interrogation room and like maybe they are like them seeing an interesting performance there. So like I'm maybe that way like then that probably there as well and they're being absolutely no about there as well as like scenario that like that way them freeing Owens and I'm going to Owens to help like and putting them figuring out exactly what to do as to like it leads to that destroy that complexity. And that way like through Owens of help like them definitely succeeding to that absolute step like so that once again get back into that care that then could be making it to that exact location where like the controls of like that complex machine could be and like definitely them doing exactly according to like the whole of like uh, of Owens and the that way like them thoroughly destroying that complex machine. So and in irreversible state like them thoroughly destroying like that complex machine is like the scenario that I'm supposed to play. That way like the that attempt through the like the complex machine that that gate of all of that getting stopped instantly and like the machine gets destroyed is like what's up that and like then like at that point I'm showing that the what this as well as like all the resembles like will be properly and they will be getting the sound of like the description of like all of them will be sharing like sound of like, the description of like the complex material and then that even happening while even like the presence would be like taking operation and at that point that I'm thinking that this like Robin the team of like Robin the and Erica would be even executing all this and responding like the complex things like doing the scenario that like at that point like hearing like the sound of like perspective from like the between location of it from between like at that point like the principles as well as like the other things like would be or worriedly getting to that location to like set out like what happened. So like at that point I was looking at that situation creating like the opening for like the team of like Robin and Harika and Dustin to be able to quickly make it back to like Steve's interrogation room and leave them and actually, by then, like, the like, Steve would have recovered enough, like, would have regained back his like confidence and like, would have recovered enough to be able to, like, uh, to walk, to walk up to, like, to scenario that way, like, them was running during that time while they would be all, like, rushing towards, like, failure to, like, escape and to be making it through, like, would be, to be doing that whole run and rush towards, like, that elevator that, like, Robin, would be even telling secretly would be like telling Steve that basically that she loves Steve, like telling the scenario that I'm supposed to take. Uh, and like that number spring like will be like totally he will be totally shocked at that point like hearing that one Robin is like personality and like she will be that will be totally making Steve so really happy at that point like so like personality and definitely have to really remember like frequently there might have been like a scenario where like Steve might have asked Robin out on a date when they might have been like trying to like figure out how to like basically make it to that invasion room during the initial phase of like the investigation and everything. So like in the middle of the night, like Steve might have like secretly asked Robin out on a date and Robin might have rejected Steve at that point. Supposedly like supposedly that Steve might be along the lines like Robin might have done that and that might be the reason for like Steve's like sudden anger and everything in like while like Captain and all of them had basically like through that event had basically shown up to like the uh, underground secret Russian laboratory might be the case that Lehman Brothers. That might be the reason for like she's kind of so like the sudden like like revelation by Robin that like she actually loves Steve. That would be a shock of joy for like Steve at that point. It's like the scenario and everything. In that way, like them being able to like make it to the elevator and make it back to like the elevator to like the what's that word in time to the doctor in time. It's like the to like the modern time. It's like the scenario that I pray and the good thing also maybe for like what points like definitely maybe scaling back to like probably distract like the to create more distraction for like the for example like so that like that so that like Robin and Robin will be able to like the scenario that I'm doing and that for situation and like the description of like the machine and everything which I'm whispering and that thing will be happening or something in like the of being both in the generation that like I'm doing and that I'm whispering like something in like own single get eliminated like in the not that I'm just also then I'll send like that way of the thing like even by the time that season 3 of spring things will be over like even at that point like I'm whispering like definitely for like except for like for like I'm whispering none of like the other share of police like sound of Hawkins like don't even realizing about like the whole personal preference in like the and like about like the Russian energy cigarette Russian on the laboratory and like certain preference and everything in like the last Hawkins in like the within that time in like the side thing for food is like in the scenario that so like even what like then the prison three will be just like copper alone would be like only certain like the police force that will be aware of like this method the situation and things that have happened and everything. It's like the initial scenario that I'm thinking and the friend. Like first of all, because I don't like the for like Steve eventually regaining back his like uh still while Steve would be in like in some kind of like state along with Black Robin as well. In that interrogation group. Just like the other of the and at that point like Steve slowly regaining back his like consciousness and like at that point like Robin Black only having that serious talk with like Steve Black Robin just maybe at that point, like revealing to like Steve as to like according to my brother and like Robin might have okay, Steve might have asked Robin was on a date and Robin might have rejected Steve. Yeah, might be like the case. So like Robin totally revealing to like Steve as to like why she had like rejected Steve back then. And basically Robin also confessing like how badly she loves truly loves Steve to Steve at that point. It's like to a shock Steve at that point. It's like was an arc that I'm looking at that point by sheer coincidence, like I'm just like the journey of like Karaka and that's the whole that whole air ventilation air pathway, like eventually ending up with like them exactly during that moment while Robin would be confessing love to like Steve at that point that like Karaka as well as like nothing like uh, being present on that exact ceiling area of that road and then probably hearing that as well. It's like the middle scenario that I'm of like the multiple scenarios that I'm looking over prediction was playing. So like the flavor trend for right now is that is the 11th road that are where might be totally searching for exactly to be might be the case right now and like it might be totally according to that might was like man that like 11 might be doing this definitely not trend. So like definitely I'm looking right now like their high priority definitely should still be definitely to like find out like where exactly put to base the of like that of like the minimize so like definitely might have maybe might plan like might have all element to that once again end up like the last word and like so actively and might have straight away also want element to like probably expect like some sort of like a trap or like attempt to like trick element once again to either the or the uh, would be along the lines like might have want 11 before 11 right now in and reflecting outwards might be the case. Just leave it like the previous the situation where like 11 through the backward had seen like head of like in that rubber benefit situation yet like once like 11 along with like nothing had made it to like head of home like in that point like head of appeared to be quite I don't think so definitely like even might not reveal even in might not reveal all to like Mike and others so like we might have want 11 to like basically right now quite entering elected updates to like expect like some sort of like an attempt by the mini might player to complete trick of uh trick 11 through the league was like might get on the line like might have want 11 and might have forced 11 that like couldn't focus to totally the to like basically to find some sort of like a close whether it's like sound or like any object that like even possibly to like spot nearby to where like really might be in like without way but then such a possibility as to that search for 11 to like search for any sort of like close that which might give away like the location of like the secret base of the community where would be around the lines of that the plan that might have told 11 and that uh, this might be the case so like right now I'm looking like by 11 in like the dark world like I'm looking right now 11 without this great like finding the and like later the husband will be lovely then along with like the and this time I'm looking like neither maybe have the neither appearing to be in any sort of like dangerous kind of like situation then probably not going to pay attention to some way neither them not even bothering to that make them disappear like neither like the minimum player like making them disappear uh, from like 11 right to like the after and after is like the scenario that happens. So like them humble for like scaring at like 11 then for like at that point like as like 11 would be walking and getting close towards like in the end of the thing like the dark point like at that point I'm from behind till the end of what like this like mini like mind player like totally revealing itself in front of like 11 of like in front of like a short 11 of like the scenario that I'm looking for. So like that's like the scenario that I'm looking for right now. So the me at probably like the mini mind player might be in such an overconfident kind of like state after like 11's like battle performance. Yeah, but like the new monsters like battle performance against like 11 basically the fact that it was still able to like take for that attack and can resist attack from 11 and still was able to like survive like that might have given that choose twist of like or confidence for like the mini mind player that and like in the last word like the mini mind player like revealing itself and basically that probably challenging 11 to like come find it if, like 11 there like would be along the lines and looking like the mini mind player like and the be screaming at like 11 and the 11 like telepathic powers like will be able to like comprehend that meaning behind that dream as such the challenge put forward towards that against like never uh by like the minimal club with like doing the scenario that I'm looking for right. So that the statement right now that like beneath like the goal of base like the minimal club just recently maybe just like the previous day that might have been when that underground hub might have been created, might have been fully created and reached into like some basic might be like the stepping in the pyramid. So like it might have been for like the process of like basically for like the creation and completion of like that underground hub like beneath like the go down base of like the minimum that like all these like fertilizers like basically like most of the store like basically and like fertilizers and everything like it might have been using for the like transport for this like fertilizers all these fertilizers going missing in like the town all of that might have been to that transport all these fertilizers to that speed up like the process of like creation of that single cup might have been like the intent and reason for like all the fertilizers going missing and it might have been for like the creation of like those creation of that underground hub like definitely like this underground digging of like underground tunnel like and like definitely that resulting in like basically like the mud from all that digging that basically that making their clothes unclean and basically to clean up like the clothes of like the human army of like the mini mind player until recently like is the while like the mini mind player was like prioritized instead and while really was like even after like uh, going back to like the basic like the mind class still like the next day even believe that he stay like basically running back for like what kind of like the swimming pool so luckily expect like really that basically but like and also going back to like what is there the GS for close to like easily to be fully cleaned by morning might be the reason for like the chemical supplies and detergents and clean supplies and detergents that got missing as well. Might have been like the case, especially in the reimbursement. So definitely since like all that things going missing until this point that have stopped all of them. This might be due to like only just now recently like that full creation of that underground hub, that single underground hub beneath like that drawdown phase of the mini flap might be fully complete, might be like so that the remaining process like another thing that the hub itself might take care of it and like so definitely there might not be any need for like any more fertilizer and especially with lag lag with lag element having funds and it might have been solely due to lag element lag process alone like usually this entire time like the minimum flap might have prioritized like self and like we had to leave that usually as well as compound even after being taken control like usually having them go back to their work so like usually since that effect process like element has found out the truth about like them all being controlled by the minimum flap so luckily understand like because of this reason like there might have been there might be absolutely no need for that stealing of any more clean supplies of detergent with for like the minimum and it's like might be also the reason for like the some stopping of all these things. And like might be also due to like in like the present like basically like most likely the minimum like basically the or continent especially after like elements like the battle performance of like the new monster against like 11 like that Liam Sudirman my friends that might have given like the minimum player that extreme or confidence that it will definitely be able to like friend of 11 like it might so like the minimum player might be feeling like it has that even no more need for like fuel for like release stuff because like it might have been this and that and it might have been like silly that like the minimum club might have mainly like for like the abduction and basically to increase its like in and everything and like release like like the fuel for like release car like this might have been that the necessary background that might have been for like fuel uh, fuel has been going to be content now open. So like actually at present like the minimum club might be on confident and like will be feeling as if, like it has no more need for like stuff or any more uh, uh, increase in its like consequence of the thing might be the case with Linux might be the reason for like no more fuel as well going missing from like getting stolen from like the non-focus at present. This there might be the case with minimum trend. Like basically in short, like it's remind of the ambition that like in that go down days of like the minimum where like at present like there might be just like small gate to like the path but which might have been definitely created by control can by the mind player as well as like uh beneath that soil like there might exist like an underground like plant like up with that the vines leading to that plant like up might have changed from that gate secret gate that might be present in that soil base of the minimum might be also like the actuality of like the creation the actuality of the case limit and like from that hub like vines might be spreading in all directions from like underground from that's in the subject. So, this definitely also might be like the case of the limit trend. The limit trend right now that I think that the person like the situation of like the minimum mind player might be like the exactly like how like the new monster had basically the through like the minimum mind player the control had merged with like the minimum mind player like I'm like all the other human army members of like the minimum mind player like including like the as well as other like the minimum mind player at that point like especially with like the I think like think that time like at that point it's about like minimize that might have been certainly the minimize that might have turned each and every single one of its like human control human army into like similar kind of like new monsters and like it might have had like all the new monsters like merged and basically like all that monsters merged into like a huge monster and like it might have had like and I'm referring to what it is like either that huge monster and like the minimize player being separate but like I'm only monsters about to get like the minimize player like having all those like new monsters like merged with like the mini mind player and that way like the mini mind player like gaining that sharp increase in strength as well as size, as well as like form as well like the minimum player might have been that way able to like change in the creative member might have been able to like change its form to like its form. It's like it might have felt suitable, like the suitable for like backline to like down 11. Might be also the case that in other brains. So like at present, like the minimize players like form itself might have often changed into taking up like the form of like a combined form of main form of like the new monster as well as like the minimize player might be the case that minimize players. And get like I'm the play for like eventually like that final showdown battle and so getting that uh eventually that 11 set and getting some type of like a power here and especially in that battle eventually I'm probably getting that element of the subsidiary in like basically definitely saving the league as well as like as well as like all the remaining uh human army members of like the minimum player like definitely eventually who 11 having a power trade and like that power trade a powerful attack on that 11 like doing significant damage to like the minimum player like in like the minimum player like ending up losing more and more control over his like human army. In that way, like the human army turned monster that will merge with like the minimum player like that merging coming under more and more and that way like the like the humans turning back to from that monster to like a human form. It's like the intention scenario that I was about to and like not only back to the human form but like them eventually like the more damage like the minimum player will be taking like eventually like really as well as like like the remaining human army members like eventually the more damage like the minimum class would be taking like one by one like each and every single one of them like would be even getting free from like the control of the minimum class that like eventually it would be just like the minimum class all alone by itself having to like face on against like you know and maybe even carry the game was sort of like making about 2000 like that was battle between like 11 and like the minimum player like until the thing happening in like that forum based like the minimum player like and even that was battle so today reaching a point where like I'm open that underground like plan like hub which might exist beneath like that forum based like and you can like really getting reviewed due to like thinking to be perfect then you can attacks of that clash between like the American is the attack of 11 and like the minimum player and everything resulting in like be that underground of getting exposed and basically plan like of getting exposed and like almost maybe at that point and that Mike and others like managing to destroy like once again destroy like that underground hub and like maybe that resulting in like uh can getting straight from like the control of like maybe like the giant mind player also like from that was also like about the at this point that way like at that point like Kelly like getting her control back Kelly being free from the control of the mind player and that way like maybe with like some kind of attack of like Kelly and 11 like this only taking out like eliminating like the minimum player. And that's one just like doing it as like the minimum player at that point will be able to getting scared and will be attempting to like escape so that escape back to like the parent world and before like the minimum player will be able to like escape like and like Johnny and even like combined attack taking out like the minimum player. Which like also like another observation scenario that so like in short, like according to my preference, totally different. Like it might be totally good in that. And present like the minimum player as well as like swinging monster, like the entirety of like the human army of like the minimum player or the minimum player have to like control like turning all of them into like this like new monster and basically like all this like new monster like merging with like the minimum player and turning into like an even bigger like minimum player half minimized laptop, new nodes are like combined and merged that new intimidating giant form, even way bigger and way more stronger and powerful form and intimidating form of like a nodes of that might be that the current form of like the minimized laptop. And this might be the reason for like 11 right now not being able to that throw that upward, like not being able to that find neither Billy nor Heather, nor from nor anyone might be due to this reason it's getting demonstrated. So, like at this point, like it might be only the mini mind player alone that like 11 might be able to that suck and even uh if and even be able to like find at this point at this situation might be like the activity of the situation is definitely not frame. So like the new premission right now is that like the fact that like the giant original mind player was able to like precisely know where exactly 11 was in like the real world even after like 11 had closed the gate to like the completely shut down like the gate to like the airport in like the past. And while 11 was like dancing in that snowboard dance with like right, the fact that like the giant fortress mind flare was that basically at that exact location in like the Bangalore. Definitely, the reason for it being exactly there in like the Bangalore might have been that we people like in being well fully aware that like people like it's talking and following 11 around there are 11 goes in like the real world like exactly for that location like and different like this like meaning and the like hotel giant shadow amount of my following 11 might be the case. So like while 11 was dancing is like my that snowball dancing like about like at that point like that giant mind player might have been well fully aware that like 11 was at that exact location like the real world might be like the place the minimum frame. So if you ask like how exactly like the giant mind player might have been able to like know that I think so I think like it might have been definitely through like so prove that the giant portal mind player like taking control by then taking control of like the parallel version of 11 who would have turned into a humanoid face model might be the case with Lehman. So like especially when we frame just that like things like the face monster as well as like the shadow monster like most likely might be two totally different monsters from maybe two different social dimensions like and totally different. So definitely like as to like the control as to like the control of like the shadow like how like the shadow must take control of like the uh, humans as well as like as to like what happens to a human while like getting abducted by like a case monster that's not like the control of like the shadow monster might be totally two different cases definitely will face it. So like definitely remember the like in the distant past like the validation enough in like the bad might have depended on like the bad version of 11 in like the bad word and that might have resulted in that another gate from like the bad word to a totally different dimension that might have opened up in like the long step but it might have resulted in like the giant shadow of the as well as like the similarities as well as like the like like all entering into that and integrating into that Japan world might have been the case. And like by then like Japan world is like totally the end of the sky. I'm still thinking about that might lead you to like the gate that might have been created in like Japan world by like Japan version of event in like the long mission pass might have expanded and that would make it due to maybe like the band world having that different by having similarities might also have we have in like difference between like the real world. So probably in the case of like the battle world, in that case like the battle world, like in the case might have expanded at a really great reason that way like the entirety of like the sky might have been consumed by the darkness or like the dimension of like the shadow matter versus the risk matter and that might be how like the entirety of like the battle world might have turned dark without any sunlight might have been like the case definitely when transition to definitely I'm referring like the parallel version of 11 might have been that might have gotten affected by a lag one of that the facial humanoid mostly like and lag and definitely I'm referring like individuals with that high IQ might be lag might have been potentially targeted and might have also affected by like the facial monster by not being unconnected and always might have been important and so certainly the parallel version of Black 11 might have got affected and might have eventually into that kind of like situation. And like that might have resulted in like this like process like beginning in that rough kind of like situation. Like it might have once like that process might have been over like parallel version of 11 might have ended up turning into a humanoid faceless monster. Like that might have been what might have happened to the minimum print and this might have been that exact faceless humanoid monster that 11 the real world 11 while I think that had like actors like the last void for like the top time had like seen the like only seen like this like face of monster for like the top time and like basically that is wonderful try to like communicate with like 11 and basically like caring 11 like basically that time that 11 might have heard that might have heard and understood what that like face of humanoid monster was trying to like, communicate to like it might have been like that to people like 11 like really public and that what like that faceless uh humanoid monster might have told 11 might have been that like 11 is that exactly that faces monster is exactly 11 might be along the lines like that communication that 11 and like that faces monster is like one and the same would be along the lines like that faces monster might have communicated to like 11 might be the case that for like and it might be the reason for like 11 well like eventually I think that having told like my that like 11 is like a monster and all this might have been like the result of like that communication by that faces monster that might have happens in like even like wherein like that distant path like might have told about that like then work on one month thing and like 11 might have been able to also sense like it might while it was like a bit more like 11 might have been 11 like telepathic powers might have been also like sense that 11 persons like in that is monster as well still lose not like the method expression that is not being like the spiral version of like 11 that will ending up transforming into like a base of like might have been what might have definitely no brains but uh during that snowball time between like Mike and 11 like the fact that like the giant original mind player was able to like know where exactly 11 was might have been definitely able to like by then like the giant original mind player having taken control of like that exact like faces monster who might be like the balance of 11. It's definitely manipulating this so that faces monster alone might have like the power to be able to might be having like the access to like the dark void alone that is one of my most likely not have that maybe might have like telepathic powers but like definitely won't be having like telekinesis powers that are definitely able to represent yet like might have like the access to like dark void and like the shadow monster simply might have taken control of that phase humanoid monster might have strongly found out that that faceless monster alone is like special since it alone might have that access to the dark world, since like even like the band 11 has known of Phantom Bomb. It might have been the case, trend because like it might have been through the control of this like faceless humanoid monster that like the original mind player might have been able to like track down like the location of that 11 to like that snowball that location even after 11 had permanent fully closed like the gate looking like the real world and bad world back then definitely might be pretty good. And that way like it might be through that way and not through like the help of like the certainly not through like the help of like the mini mind player since like it now thoroughly revealed that like the mini mind player has only had only came alive like only through like that experiment to open up like the gate by that the Russian energy Russian scientist in like that Russian energy laboratory is like not since it was only at that point that like it's now revealed that like the mini mind player had even been able to like come alive like so definitely this might have been what kind of happened in like the past especially in the interesting right so definitely next reaction right now is that it seems like Gil had survived enough for like being taken control by like the mean by like the mini mind player like so definitely I'm referring that in the case of like staff as well even though the person will be very much alive definitely when you mentioned not only that but like among like the dark like monster faceless monsters that back then like the past like had been that infected by like the mind player like except for like the like faces monsters too while 11 was like closing the gate to like the pan bird along with like over like really those like dark like faceless monsters who were at the top of that like core location alone might have been like the only one that might have fallen to their elimination. Like there might have been a great number of like faceless stuff like who might have been like on their way to like climbing towards like climbing and making towards like the top and there might have been exact like that and that was like because after like you know placing the game the fact that like that was like I think was revealed to be present in that honeycomb like main like area like so I think so. Definitely, I'm think there might have been a great number of like other staff like his monitors who might have been present on that honeycomb like location, who might have been heading towards like and might have not even made it to that location. Beneath like for instance like energy laboratory where like while 11 was had closed the gate might have been the case. So like we had survived even after like 11 had closed the gate and like the hub being destroyed and everything. So it's like how Will had survived like uh, all those like great number of like certain extended great number of like places monsters as well, including that might not have been survived, it's definitely one of them. So might have been faced with like that consistent control by the shadow monster like causing that extreme closer to like that as well as like a bunch of face monster like I'm thinking like up you know had close to it like I think that had I think that it is to be like in that in like an unmoving kind of state that might have been just sheer exhaustion alone. So like I'm going after years like that might have gotten up and and might have been since then might have been living in that uniform like area or like might have been living in like the form in the house. And it might be not only that alone that might have suffered, but like a bunch of like that like states of monsters that well might be even though the person might be simply hiding and might be open and living either in like the honeycomb like maze beneath foreigners and of the laboratory or like in like the post in like the round of office might be like the actuality of like the situation that we might have been. So definitely one should understand that sitting on this especially that like 11 might have definitely after like failing to like find Philly and ahead of and that form and all like so the last point like 11 might have exactly might have felt that they need to that search for exactly left in mind like so that 11 might have searched for like the mini mind map in like the real world and basically might have totally found like the mini mind flare and like so like 11 might have definitely totally seen like the current present like ultimate form of like the mini mind flare which would be like the I'm still remember the frame would be like the mini mind flare form combined with like the form of like the new monster like it used to form merged and combined into that like ultimate even way bigger like monster into making monster like just exact form of ultimate monster like 11 might have totally seen into making monster like 11 might have totally seen through that shut up where it's definitely correct. But like I'm saying like by now that 11 after like fighting that all these monsters so much that by now that 11 might be totally not that extremely afraid even though that 11 might be only having that might have gotten to the better to a certain extent on seeing that was like uh, ultimate form of like this like minimum player at certain which might have been normal but still 11 might be still having like the courage to like still face it and like to bring it out the ball like stick was like any more probably definitely my premise. So definitely I'm looking right now like the perfect situation would be like along with that 11 like and definitely 11 might have found out that like the exact direction that 11 has to like head off to find this like and face and fight and bring down like ultimate. So definitely right now like the situation would be like along with that 11 like Nancy Johnson like they might have taken the car and like Mike and also might have gotten into the car and might have through 11 like telling the direction like they might be heading off towards like the ultimate forum phase of like the mini Minecraft might be like situations that will even so like right now as like Joyce is like about to call go and tell uh it's about to tell like when another like something like Joyce not being able to like no matter whose home go to recording that none of like the children would be there at all. Definitely like the situation with like Joyce is like the scenario that I'm looking at. So like that would exactly even though if that has both worry and even more of a scare of the possibility of that whether like awesome or safe or not. So like definitely I'm straight away like Joyce would be like in her mind like straight away leave like Norai moments like this and head back to like how can that moment itself like basically to straight away head off to find Will a job or might be along the lines of the comparing definitely goes with this straight away taking the decision and like overall will be like 6 we worried for like 11 so that definitely overall along with like choice as well as that let's let them take this not like the off place like along with them and heading off as they will be like rushing to that quickly to their car to like head off to something like I'm looking at that point I'm looking like the right moment as well like that that only a different scenario happening where like Norai Bowman as well like at that last moment like preparing to like go along with them to be part of like that whole situation problem the whole situation and everything for like the kind of like the scenario that I'm looking since that until this point like all Norai Bowman has done was like all Norai was only be able to like hear like everything that in like the past like Nancy to like Johnson have said about like their revelation about like back when like I'd like going to like kind of read about things like them like seeing that whole state and everything like that when like and like back when like I think like Nancy and Johnson had revealed it to all this to like Roy Bowman like basically the fact that like so far like Roy Bowman has never got to like experience or like witness like any of like just things other than just like uh hear about it like so different like Bowman like at that very last moment like deciding to like go along with like Hope and Joyce and selecting the scenario that I'm doing. That way, like, Bowman most likely, like, going around with them, or like I'm putting that woman like the solutions. I think like the like a one at like woman's home like projects to get them at the friends and pocket work like that being like woman like maybe ultimate custom made stuff just like woman might have sophisticated and complicated stuff just like woman might have set himself which might be having like all sorts of like sequence mechanisms as well as like attack mechanisms for that graph. So like even instead of that like I'm certain domain it's probably in that shouting out to like operandos properly to like basically to like to get them and basically like them all getting into like domain like one and basically set a clear one and like don't like domain like them all like okay heading down I think heading off to that topic. And like definitely I'm looking like at that point like pop-up doors will be getting extremely using their patients with like just like unique breakup of like comments like scenarios because like I'm looking at it will be slower than like that on a car that like of a headstone it's like the scenario that I'm saying and so definitely have to put in like uh definitely open as well as like those sitting in patient like basically shouting out at like a moment and like topic probably like totally like with their urgency like them suddenly consulting like performance like sophisticated ways and then it's like doing this in our parameters is only putting but like I'm starting to really wants like to come to like show like I'm starting like uh government like sophisticated ways of being able to like help of them out in like such fight and situated with like being the scenario that I'm looking at the today.